if we are not alarmed by this, there's something wrong with us.
You can't trust the filter, and people don't trust the people in charge right now.
Well, we were surprised when we learned about the PFOA in the water, that's for sure.
I worry more for my health, but also for the health of my grandchildren.
The sink water is not good for you, not for people or animals.
The voices of residents living in Hoosick Falls.
For the past 2 months, they have been dealing with frustration, fear, and uncertainty after learning their water was contaminated with PFOA, a chemical suspected of causing cancer.
Hoosick Falls residents have been clamoring for answers, and finally those answers are coming. Good evening, and thanks for joining us for this special report, Community in Crisis, Hoosick Falls. I'm Benita Zahn.
And I'm Jim Cambridge. And over the next half hour, we're going to look at how we got to this point. We will hear from one of the first people to get their blood tested today, and from the man credited with bringing this issue to light.
And Jessica Layton is live in Hoosick Falls, where she'll be speaking with the mayor. Now, we start with Governor Cuomo's big announcement last night. It's what Hoosick Falls residents have been hoping for. A new water source.
This is a huge relief to all who worry that a filtration system, temporary or permanent, just wouldn't be enough. Anna Myler has the story.
Michael Hickey has been fighting for clean drinking water since he discovered alarming levels of a toxic chemical called PFOA in the village water in 2014. It's been an uphill battle. But today he got a big win when Governor Cuomo announced the state is using $10 million from the Superfund to start planning for a new permanent source of water.
This was really the ultimate goal, was to be able to provide clean water for everybody in the town and the village of Hoosick Falls, and it seems like we're going in the right direction finally.
The possible sources could include new or deeper wells, or securing and treating water from the Hoosick River or other clean water sources. This will be in addition to the permanent filtration system that will be complete in October. This news is a big relief for many who say they don't trust the filtration system will make their water safe again.
A lot of people don't have a lot of trust in the local officials right now, so they're kind of leery on trusting them with keeping up and giving us honest results.
The state will also pay for the installation of filters at 1,500 homes in the town of Hoosick, where residents get their water from private wells. After many difficult months of drinking and cooking with bottled water, the future is finally starting to look a little brighter, all because Michael Hickey didn't give up.
This will probably be the biggest accomplishment of my life, I think. So I think I will feel proud of it.
Now, Hoosick Falls Mayor David Borge credits local students for the governor's action. At a Friday news conference, they implored the governor to follow through on a promise he made to them 4 years ago.
In your 2012 State of the State address, you said that you would be a lobbyist for us, the students, and put our needs above all else. Here's what we ask. We want the security of our town back. We want to take a shower without worrying about how soon we should get out. We want to be able to wash off and eat off our dishes free from the threat of cancer. We want our parents to live long and healthy lives, and we want the option to one day come back, raising our own children in our hometown.
Powerful testimony from students living in Hoosick Falls. And the man responsible for bringing this whole thing to light in the first place joins us now. Michael Hickey, thank you for being here. We appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me.
What was your reaction to the governor's announcement?
It was, that's what we've been looking for. Really, it's a step in the right direction. I don't think we're quite there yet. I think there's still some things that need to be ironed out, and kind of finding the new water source would be that first step. But it's the right direction. That's where we're looking to go.
We heard just a moment ago moving testimony from those students. How critical a role do you think they played in this process?
I think they made it happen yesterday. I think they're very responsible. I think that was great for our community. I think it was a sense of pride, really being a resident there. My son will be entering into school next year, so it's a sense of pride and community, and for him to have those type of role models moving forward is pretty exciting for parents. So hopefully that will be, helpful with this stigma of overcoming the Superfund label. So I think that should help also, not only with the governor, but feel little bit more confidence maybe with the people who purchased homes in the village prior, to see really what they were buying into, not only with their homes, but in the school district as well.
How long do you think that cloud's going to continue to hang over your community, even after all the new systems are installed?
I think it's going to be a bit, but I think we're a very proud community. I think we're, with our school district, our superintendent, Ken Facine, has done a great job supporting us. I think our village board and our mayor, we're working through the obstacles that we had. There was some issues in the beginning, but I think that I took a couple of steps backwards to look at, the mayor and the board. It's not a full-time job, and it's tough for everybody to understand really the severity of our problem from the beginning. I think it was really a big learning process for everybody, and some mistakes were made along the way, not only on their part but on our part as well. So I think that we need to stay positive. We're getting the help that we need to begin the process, and just hopefully we can continue along that road.
Take our viewers back just a little bit in capsule form, if you will, how you got rolling on this to begin with, starting with your father.
It was really a random Google search. I started looking into it. There was always been kind of a thought in the village that we seem to have a high rate of cancer among the citizens. One of our local teachers passed away about a year after my father did. And I was, on the computer, and I said, maybe I'll look into this. I looked into one of the factories, and it didn't have any of the chemicals that would cause cancer at Oak Mitsui. But then I just typed in Teflon and cancer, and it popped up the C8 science panel from the findings in DuPont. And, kidney cancer was the first one that popped up on the list, and that's what my father had. So it was hard for me to turn away at that point in time because it was more personal. So I continued along that road and brought Dr. Martinez into the picture about 3 months after my reading, because I wanted to make sure that there was enough evidence there for him to even read, because I know he's very busy with what he does.
Dr. Martinez in context here is who?
The town physician.
Okay.
I think he has 5,000 patients under his care. He's also the physician for the school as well. So I brought him in. I sent him some of the literature on the C8 science panel. And at that point, he thought there was enough evidence there for him to justify a test, or for at least us to move on a little bit to see if there really was something to it, maybe to dismiss it, hopefully. Mm-hmm. We approached the board at that time, or the mayor, to see if they were able to test for it then. That was about mid-August 2014. They were unable to because it's an unregulated contaminant at that time.
And that's where we are now.
Yep. Well, we're regulated now,
right,
since we were declared the Superfund site, so we put that on in New York State, where it's now going to be a regulated contaminant.
Right. Michael, unfortunately, we're out of time here, but we're so happy that you could join us, and we're happy that things are now starting to look up for your community.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Michael Hickey, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Benita, back over to you.
Jim, thank you. And free blood testing started today, and I'm sure that's something Michael Hickey and his family will avail themselves of. The state is picking up the tab so residents can learn if they have high levels of PFOA in their system. Dan Bazil has that story.
Marie Davick has lived in Hoosick Falls since the 1960s. That's a considerable amount of time, she says, spent using and consuming the water she thought was safe.
My kids grew up there, and I have a son who got cancer. Our street is really riddled with cancer.
She lives on McCaffrey Street, the same area where Saint-Gobain is located. Davick says she's healthy for now. She can't say the same for her family.
One child died with cancer, and 2 other children have kidney problems, and it's scary.
She's worried, and that's why she was at the Armory in Hoosick Falls getting her blood tested.
We will sample probably around 100 people today. They'll have their blood drawn for PFOA levels.
State Department of Health Commissioner Dr. Howard Zucker says the level will be compared to a national background amount of PFOA that many people already have.
PFOA, even if it's in your blood, if you're not exposed to it, it takes a period of time, but it slowly goes out of your blood system as well.
Test results are expected back in a couple of months. Dr. Zucker, along with DEC Commissioner Basil Sagos and Governor Cuomo's Director of State Operations, were all in Hoosick Falls today as part of the ongoing effort, they say, to find a permanent solution for the crisis.
We're here, we're doing the investigation, and we're putting the people of Hoosick Falls at ease that we will be able to provide water within a short time frame.
And as the residents of Hoosick Falls start to move forward, many questions remain about how we got to this point.
State Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie has scheduled hearings in April to determine who knew about this and when.
Republican Assemblyman Steve McLaughlin reached out to key Assembly Democrats, urging them to call the hearings. And in a rare show of bipartisanship, they agreed and made the announcement in less than a week.
McLaughlin wants to know if there was an attempt to cover up what he's describing as the next love canal. News Channel 13 has proof that village, state, and federal investigators have known about this problem for more than a year.
Jessica Layton's been investigating the details of this discovery. She joins us now from Hoosick Falls to explain. Jess.
And guys, a local family here in the village was kind enough to let us broadcast live from their home tonight so we could really hammer home why so many people living here are so on edge. It is all because of this toxic tap water. Now, most people living here realized this was dangerous just a couple of months ago, but we've been doing some digging and we found out it really came to light about a year and a half ago. When did you learn about PFOA in the water?
Well, as the timeline demonstrates, we first learned of the possibility, of the potential, I should say, in August of 2014.
That was 18 months ago. So what's taken so long for something to be done about the dangerous water in Hoosick Falls? Mayor Dave Borge tells me after he found out the water flowing through these taps could be contaminated, his first call was to the Rensselaer County Health Department. But it took 3 months before any testing was done. Why?
We had to find out exactly what we were dealing with. How do you sample for this?
The EPA describes PFOA as a man-made chemical that's toxic and persistent in the environment. It's used in firefighting foams and nonstick products like pots and pans.
This was an unregulated contaminant, so there really were no guidelines to follow.
In other words, Hoosick Falls was about to become the guinea pig in setting the PFOA guidelines. We got our hands on this letter written by an attorney for Saint-Gobain, which DEC now names as one of the companies responsible for the PFOA contamination. It's dated December 2014. That's 2 months after the first water sampling was done in the village. It shows the plastics plant was notifying the EPA about the high levels of that chemical found in the village drinking water. The next 12 months were filled with many questions and not many answers. This document shows the village expressed concerns to the state health department. The response? The amount of PFOA in the water did not present an immediate health hazard. Then fast forward to December 2015. The state health department releases what it calls a long fact sheet on the Hoosick Falls water, including a cover page of important points. It said health effects are not expected to occur from normal use of the water. Only days later, that same health department urged residents to stop drinking and cooking with the water. A month later, the governor declared the Saint-Gobain property a Superfund site, and now the village is in a race to install filtration systems. Who dropped the ball here?
I don't think anybody dropped the ball here, and we're not into finger pointing.
Maybe the mayor's not, but people here want answers. Assemblyman Steve McLaughlin is among them, and he's calling for assembly hearings on who knew what and when. And Mayor Dave Borge here now live to talk with me more about those assembly hearings and some other issues. Mayor, great to have you here tonight.
Thank you.
If you are called to testify at these assembly hearings, are you confident, number one, in your timeline, and number two, that we will not realize that there was any cover-up during this process?
There has been no cover-up whatsoever. And that's very troublesome that is being talked about. Yes, I'm very confident in the timeline. We've tried to be as transparent as we possibly can be. We've documented as much as we possibly can. Where we've needed to update things or make changes, we're doing that. So I think the information is all there.
You have told us over and over that everybody should feel confident in trusting the Department of Health. This is an agency that just 2 months ago said the water is okay for normal use. So why should we trust an agency that said that? And now we know the truth.
Well, I think the Department of Health, as well as EPA, they've come to an agreement in terms of what needed to be done. And once they did that, we started notifying people. And the Department of Health is going forward, and we're going forward. We've got the EPA here as well. We've got many experts, so we're going to go forward. I'm very confident with the temporary system that's going to be operational within just a matter of a few weeks. So again, there'll be a lot of eyes on this, a lot of people looking at this, and people want to get it right, and we need to.
A lot of people want to know why they were not told to drink bottled water until a year after the village knew that this water could be contaminated. What can you tell those people?
Well, our first call that we made when we learned that this could be a possibility was to the Department of Health, and we followed what the regulators told us.
My last question, Mayor, is the governor's announcement that they are working on a brand new water source. What kind of a load is that off your back? What kind of a load is that off the village's back?
Well, it's not so much my back, but it's really the community. What the governor did yesterday is a game changer. There is absolutely no question about that. Not only are the resources here to do the job, but we're going to be able to get it done very, very quickly. So we're going to have our temporary system, we're going to have our long-term system, the bottled water will continue for people, and now the governor is saying that he wants DEC to start working immediately on their investigation, their report, so that we can determine a clean and clear source of water. A lot of people worked on that. A lot of people made that happen, including our students here at Hoosick Falls Central.
Mayor Dave Borch, thank you so much. Best of luck to you. I know you have a lot on your plate. Thank you for joining us tonight. Now, the family who lives here, they are not into blaming anyone. They're not into pointing fingers. They just really want to know that they're all safe and healthy. We'll be hearing from them a little bit later in this broadcast. For now, reporting live in Hoosick Falls, Jessica Layton, Benita, and Jim, I'll send it back to you in studio.
All right, Jess, thank you, and we'll be checking back with you.
Well, good news on the new water source, but as for the source of the contamination, there's still a degree of confusion tonight.
On Thursday, the State Department of Environmental Conservation released a statement identifying Saint-Gobain Performance Plastics and Honeywell International as parties responsible for the contamination.
And in response, Saint-Gobain says that they're potentially responsible, and that's in the notice they got from the DEC. It says that in there. Well, DEC insists that the phrase potentially responsible parties is just a legal term. They consider Saint-Gobain to be responsible.
News Channel 13 invited Saint-Gobain to be here tonight. The CEO was not able to make the trip from company headquarters in Ohio, but he spoke with Dan Bazil about a week and a half ago.
Saint-Gobain is based out of Paris. It's a $50 billion corporation with about 200,000 employees worldwide. They came to Hoosick Falls in 1999 after acquiring another company operating at that same plant.
Well, we were surprised when we learned about the PFOA in the water, that's for sure.
Saint-Gobain used to use PFOA in PTFE or Teflon to make a number of products.
If we look at the way we Saint-Gobain, take our raw materials, use our raw materials here, our products here, we had no idea that it would be getting into the well system.
He says they also stopped using PFOA in their materials since 2003. However, they don't know about prior owners and other plants in town that used PFOA in the past. He says the priority right now is clean water for residents.
When all of the cameras are off and all of the TV lights are down and all the microphones go away, we will be here.
And we also want to mention why you are hearing different pronunciations on the company's name tonight.
As Dan referenced, the company's based in Paris. When we interviewed the CEO, he told us it's pronounced Saint-Gobain, although he says most Americans say Saint-Gobain. The worry over a chemical linked to cancer in the water and the changes it's forcing people to make is taking quite a toll on families.
So let's go back live to Jessica now, who's got an insider's look at the impact this is having. Jess.
Yeah, the fear and anxiety is really taking a toll on families, including the family who lives here in this house. And as you're about to see, something as simple as brushing teeth can be scary.
PFOA?
11-year-old Cameron Friel can't pronounce perfluorooctanoic acid.
I'm not really sure what that stands for, but I heard it's bad.
Yet she and her 4-year-old brother James
The sink water is not good for you.
Already understand what's at stake.
And why isn't the sink water good for you?
Because it makes you sick. My mom told me.
Mom is Tracy Friel, a middle school math teacher and lifelong resident of this small Rensselaer County village.
People are losing sleep.
Like most people living in Hoosick Falls, she's frustrated and afraid after off-the-chart levels of PFOA were detected in the village water. PFOA is a chemical that has been linked to cancer. Tracy's grandmother died of kidney cancer when she was 60, and she knows too many others coping with cancer to count.
I think people are nervous for their families and kids.
We spent an afternoon with them after school inside the family home on Center Street and got a glimpse into how life changes when the water that flows through these pipes might as well be poison.
And you're going to do what you have to do.
From cooking with spring water to changing the family bath time routine.
You said you don't shower as much anymore.
Oh no, it's every 2 to 3 days, and I know that sounds gross.
And brushing teeth.
I need the SpongeBob one.
James and Cameron are careful not to waste too much spring water. They only get 5 free gallons a day. Both do their best not to turn on the tap, but sometimes old habits can't be helped.
Well, oh my God, what are you two doing?
It's nerve-wracking for Tracy, teaching the family to think twice before anything and everything where water is involved.
The family just spent a fortune on this brand new refrigerator that dispenses the ice and the water automatically, but this is contaminated too.
I used to just come home, I used to grab a glass of water and I used to just put it under the sink when it was safe.
Cameron doesn't realize this water has probably never been safe during her lifetime, and that moment of realization makes Tracy worry about things she did a decade ago.
I gave them bottles, and when they were little, they took baths, and of course, kids drink their bath water.
And until she feels confident in the village's new filtration system, every aspect of their lives will keep revolving around bottled water.
And when we get to the point that the state and federal agencies say the water is safe to drink, will you believe that?
I don't know. It makes me nervous that they could get sick.
For her own peace of mind, she's taking a cue from her kids, doing her best to stay positive.
You're gonna fix it.
Living a life consumed by fears about what's in the water. And Tracy is so relieved to hear about the governor's plan to get that brand new water source in the village. They are looking forward to not having to feel like their lives depend on spring water anymore. And that's the story live from Hoosick Falls tonight. Jessica Layton, I'll send it back to you in studio.
The EPA classifies PFOA as an emerging contaminant. That means it's a perceived, potential, or real threat to our health or environment. But there are no set standards for PFOAs in water. That's part of the emerging contaminant designation. And that's part of the problem in Hoosick Falls. Joining us now is Dr. David Carpenter, director of the Institute for Health and the Environment at the University at Albany. Thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure.
What do we know about PFOAs?
We know that PFOA causes cancer. We've known that since the early 1990s. It's not true that it's an emerging contaminant. It is well emerged as a contaminant. It causes a whole variety of different cancers, especially of the kidney and bladder, and also the reproductive system. It causes prostate cancer, probably ovarian, probably breast. All of us have it in our bodies. The CDC says that 98% of people have PFOA in their bodies, and the 2% that they don't have it, but it's just below the level of detection of the instrumentation.
Well, if research is out there and there's literature indicating all these types of cancers, why don't we have the definitive study to take it from emerging contaminant to, oh yeah, this is the problem?
In my judgment, we've had those definitive studies, many of them. Now, the issue on EPA having a guideline rather than a standard, often it's very difficult to say, if you're less than this level, it's safe, and if it's more than this level, it's dangerous. The reality is, with most of these chemicals, more is worse. And there's no level, no magical boundary between safe and not safe. And that's why EPA has difficulty finding a standard. They have to give a specific number. They do have a guideline.
Right.
And that guideline is to acknowledge that there's a little bit of uncertainty there.
But it's still considered a potential carcinogen. The smoking gun papers are not stacked up by the EPA to say, yeah, this is the problem, here it is. Do we have not spent the money on more testing? Is that a problem?
Well, I think the evidence that it's a carcinogen is very strong. I've got a pile of papers over there that list all the different cancers, and so there's a lot of evidence. But the other problems, that it's not just cancer. It affects the brain. It reduces thyroid function. So we have a lot of information.
They're talking about putting a filtration system on. Will that be sufficient?
A filtration system will be, it will reduce the levels, but it's unlikely to totally remove them.
But you're telling me that they're in our environment anyway.
Well, we all do have them, yes.
And what if I just went out and bought a carbon filter to put on my faucet? Is that good enough?
Probably not, but it's better than not having a carbon filter on your faucet. No, it should be the government that provides information to people so that they can take steps to reduce the risk of disease. We need to have EPA and the State Health Department step up to the plate and provide accurate information based on what we know about the danger of this chemical.
Well, perhaps now that the light is being shed so brightly in Hoosick Falls, we will get some of this information. Dr. David Carpenter, thanks so very much for joining us.
Thank you, Benita.
Jim?
Thanks, Benita. The $10 million the governor announced yesterday is state Superfund money. Dan Bazil has more on how the Superfund works.
Hoosick Falls K-12 is one building serviced with an underground well. The water came back negative for PFOA, but the superintendent says he'll be installing a new filtration system to make sure.
But we also want assurances for our students, our families, our faculty, that the water is safe and will be safe. The governor said he would pay for the system on the school and the system on private wells.
They'll be paid for because the state declared St. Gobain a Superfund site.
We're going to start at St. Gobain because we know that material was used there.
The Superfund has $100 million from last year. The same amount will be proposed this year and for the next 9 years by the governor. It still has to be approved by the legislature. No one knows just how much the cleanup will cost in Hoosick Falls. With about 87 Superfund sites across the state that take multiple years to clean up, Environmental Advocates of New York says the Superfund money needs to be secured for the next 10 years to make sure the cleanup gets done.
Health concerns aren't the only worries facing the folks living in Hoosick Falls.
Not by a long shot. Many of them say they're having a tough time selling their homes. Terry Roach is among them. He's lived on Hoosick Street for the past 9 years. Now he and his wife want to move to live closer to family out of town. But no one showed up at their recent open house.
And others with for sale signs out front are also feeling stuck, and they also blame the water situation.
And there's a new concern tonight, the village ball fields. The Environmental Protection Agency is going to test the soil on the fields.
They worry that PFOA released into the air may have contaminated the fields, and the area may have been used as a dump site for PFOA materials in the past.
We also want to mention that we invited the State Health Department to be part of this program tonight, but they declined.
We submitted written questions. We're still waiting for answers. And of course, when we get them, we'll bring them to you.
We have seen a number of new developments in the Hoosick Falls event over the last 24 hours alone, and there's much more to come.
From the results of the blood testing to the cleanup that still has to take place, there are still details to be settled regarding a new water source and the assembly hearings to determine if there was a cover-up. You can trust News Channel 13 to stay on top of it all, both on air and online.
And we want to thank you for joining us for our special Community in Crisis, Hoosick Falls. From all of us here, good night.